welcome. Thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. I'm Hina Gambhir and you're watching our continuous coverage of the Middle East crisis. The Operation Epic Fury that was started by United States of America along with Israel has now expanded way beyond Iran, and there is a full-blown crisis in the Middle East that we are seeing right now. Let's first begin with some big breaking update that we are getting right now, and the latest update we are seeing is coming in from the United States of America. As the war continues, US has tested nuclear-capable Doomsday missile. This is the latest update that we are getting for you. Air Force Global Strike Command has launched the unarmed Minuteman III ICBM from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, equipped with 2 test re-entry vehicles. Now, this is as per a statement that has been issued by U.S. Space Force. This is the latest update that we are getting for you right now. Let me straight away go across to my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary. Okay, he'll be joining us in just a few moments from now. But this is the big news that we are breaking for you at this point in time. United States of America has tested a Doomsday nuclear missile. Now, you know, this is as per a statement that has been put out by U.S. Space Force. They have said in this particular statement that the Air Force Global Strike Command launched the unarmed Minuteman III ICBM from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. And joining us on the broadcast right now are my guests. We have retired Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, former GOC Chinnar Corps. We also have with us retired Colonel Mahesh Ramachandran, who is a defense expert. Sierra Claire, who's a foreign policy expert, live with us this morning. And good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on Times Now. Sierra Claire, to you first. Any thoughts on this big update that we've got from the United States of America? A statement that has been put out by U.S. Space Force. How do we interpret this?
Right. Well, I would say that this particular missile launch has less to do with Iran and a lot more to do with China. Okay. We are in a nuclear arms race with China. There's no doubt about it. And personally, I believe in non-proliferation. I believe in, signing going for the treaties, going for the route of trying to de-escalate anything to do with nuclear weapons. But I do know that the United States is very concerned about the Chinese nuclear weapons developments, and so obviously they are making developments of their own.
Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, your thoughts? Do you agree with what Sierra has mentioned?
Good morning to you and the fellow panelists and all your viewers. During a war, USA need not have tested the nuclear missiles and all. They only have tested them and they're lying in the nuclear stockpile. All these are posturing, because once you test a nuclear weapon and then you declare it in the media when the war is only going on, and your declared aim, one of the declared aims which is fluctuating so frequently, is denuclearization of Iran. If your denuclearization of Iran is the aim and you are testing a nuclear weapon which can hit Iran from your homeland or your assets areas, I don't think it is in the correct perspective. Now, these missiles were always there with the USA, and they know their ranges, they know their capabilities. And even if they had to test it just because they want to use it now, I hope they don't. And they need not have declared it to the world. But these are the ways the countries behave during wars to put the other opponent or adversary under pressure. And as the colleague on the panel, the ma'am, was saying, that it is against China. At this stage, when you're fighting a war against Iran, now looping in China, I don't think it is the way wars are fought. Okay. These are all red herrings. And bringing in China at this stage, getting engrossed with you, I don't see this happening. These ICBMs are capable of hitting all over the world. Okay. So this is not any country specific. These are human specific. Okay. These are human race specific. These are peace of the world specific. So I think we can do without nuclear weapons on this earth.
Okay. Colonel Ramachandran, I'll take your thoughts on this in just a bit. We have some more, in fact, updates coming in, and important points have been made already on this latest update coming in from the United States of America. But also, let's tell our viewers about what is happening in the Middle East. Viewers, it's day 6 of the Middle East war, and unfortunately, the flames of war have reached India's doorstep. The spotlight is on Iranian warship, which was invited by India for a joint naval exercise and then struck down by America off the coast of Sri Lanka on its way back. The big question here is Trump trying to drag India also into this war? Because that's going to be dangerous. At least 87 people have been reportedly killed, and a search is still on for the others who remain missing. In fact, the Eastern Naval Command put out a post a few days ago saying Indian Navy welcomes Iranian Navy on her arrival at Visakhapatnam. Yesterday, on her journey back to Iran, America's torpedo sent her to a silent death. This was confirmed by the U.S. Secretary of War. Listen in.
An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh.
And on this, I'm joined on the broadcast by Lahiru Fernando, who is a senior journalist, and he's joining us live right now from Colombo in Sri Lanka. Good morning. Thank you for speaking with us here on Times Now. Firstly, can you bring our viewers up to speed with the latest as far as this incident is concerned that was confirmed by Americans last evening? Now, this war, it seems, has come very close to India and Sri Lanka as well. And what does it really mean?
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you about what happened yesterday. Sri Lanka Navy yesterday informed that around 5 a.m. They got the distress call from an Iranian ship in the seas of 40 nautical miles off the southern coast of Sri Lanka. So they rapidly responded to that, and they sent 3 naval vessels and 1 Sri Lanka Air Force surveillance aircraft to the location. But what they said was when they reached the location from where the distress call received, there was no ship. They could not see any vessel there, but they could see some oil patches there on the waters, and also some people who were there with life jacket. So they rescued 32 people, and they were brought back to the land, and they were hospitalized. After that, in the evening, Sri Lanka Navy said that they could recover 87 bodies. And after that only, U.S. War Secretary or the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced that they attacked this ship in the Indian Ocean. So by now, media have reported that those who were admitted to the Galle National Hospital are stable, like they are there with some minor injuries, and so they are stable, and 87 bodies have been there. The 87 bodies are there. Also, they have beefed up their security in the hospital premises, and also I have to mention something about this incident. When these people were rescued, the Sri Lanka Navy wanted to know what actually happened, because at the initial point, they didn't know what actually happened. They didn't know if this was an accident or an attack. So they wanted to know from this Iranian naval staff, those who were rescued, what actually happened. But because of the language barriers, they could not communicate what actually happened. But they had mentioned to the Sri Lankan Navy that the word attack. So that's how they came to know it was an attack. Until then, even the Sri Lankan Navy did not mention anything like that, because they were not sure about the thing. And also, when the Navy was questioned at the press briefing in the evening, like, could you see any other foreign naval vessel in the vicinity of this incident? They did not answer that thing, because they did not know if there was any foreign vessel in the vicinity of this incident. that is the incident, and that is what they mentioned, the Sri Lanka Navy mentioned. And the latest update means like how the rescued people are treated. They are currently being treated at the Galle National Hospital. That's what we know so far.
Okay, you're saying 87 people have been killed. Now, that is a confirmation you're giving to us. And how many are still being treated in the hospitals? Are there some who are still missing?
Yeah. There were like it was said that there were like around 180 people on board, and 32 were rescued, and 87 bodies have been recovered, and the rest is missing. That's what we know so far.
Okay. Now, do we have any idea about the presence of other vessels in this particular area around the Indian Ocean where this attack took place, and any advisory in a way that has gone from Sri Lanka?
So far, nothing has been reported. Like that is what I mentioned also. Like during the press conference, the media questioned the Navy spokesperson. Could you notice any other, not the commercial vessels, commercial ships, any war ships in the vicinity of this area? They could not. Still, nothing has been reported.
All right. Thank you very much, Lahiru Fernando. Appreciate you joining us here on Times Now and giving us a sense of what exactly happened last evening. And we have some more breaking inputs coming in at this point in time. As per Kipler, the oil tanker traffic through Strait of Hormuz is down about 90%. This is the latest update that we are getting for you. Kipler is an energy market intelligence firm, and it actually gives us a sense of what's really happening in the energy market. And right now, as far as Strait of Hormuz is concerned, the oil tanker traffic has plunged about 90% since the outbreak of the US-Israeli attacks on Iran. Iranian military officials have said they have completely choked off traffic through the waterway, that a fifth of the world's crude oil supplies transit. And Kipler, in fact, has said that some are still risking the trip. My colleague Shrinjit Chaudhary also joining us live right now, and our guests continue to be with us as well. Colonel Mahesh Ramachandran, now, it's a very precarious situation that we are witnessing right now. Let's specifically focus on what's happening around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, oil tanker traffic in Hormuz is down about 90%. It's significant. Iranians clearly have given this warning that if any ship tries to cross over to the other side, then, that ship could be attacked. We have US President Donald Trump also saying that, US Navy is going to escort the tankers. I mean, clearly it's easier said than done. He's also said that the war insurance coverage will be provided to the ships at a much reasonable price. But right now, the situation is quite grim there. Your assessment?
Yeah, so Manihina, firstly, what Israel and US thought would be a T20 match is refusing to end. It's probably an extended test series and even beyond. And just a quick one on the Minuteman III. I respectfully disagree with what Sira said. This is not a message to China. This is a message to Iran that you try something like a dirty bomb or any nuclear misadventure, then Tehran will be the next Hiroshima. And like General Dillon correctly said, the world can do without it. Now, coming down to the Straits of Hormuz, again, this is panning out as expected because this was bound to happen. But the question is, who is going to break the deadlock? For Iran to completely cut off the Straits of Hormuz is also a double-edged sword because a lot of their revenue come from their oil exports through the Straits. So it is now the onus is completely on the United States of America and their coalition partners to break this deadlock and to ensure that the world is not starved of fuel or the fuel prices will go up. I mean, $100 billion, $100 to barrel of crude will definitely happen. As far as India is concerned, when we claim that we have about 70 to 80 days of crude reserves, our consumption is about $5 million a day, and based on that, there are adequate reserves. But at least for the short term, you can see there is going to be a crude crisis, there is going to be an oil crisis, and I'll say it again that the U.S. will have to, do something and break this stranglehold.
Okay. Whether it'll actually happen or not, of course, that remains to be seen. And we will be discussing this aspect with my other guests as well. But before that, let's also tell our viewers a little bit about how the current situation is around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, viewers, what is important to understand is that the war risk coverage has been cancelled by marine insurers for the ships that are already there. So right now, the update is that there is no war risk coverage for ships from today onwards. This comes into effect from today. Now, why it is a nightmare for all the ships? Because they can't really move to the other side. So they are just stranded there. So what happens next? Shipping companies will need now new insurance cover. Remember, US President Donald Trump has said that, he'll provide, he'll ask the, insurance, in fact, a company to also see that if at reasonable prices coverage can be provided. But will it happen for all the ships that are stranded? Of course, that can't really happen. But, how is that going to really pan out? That remains to be seen. But the impact is significant. Because of this, the cost of shipping oil from Gulf is set to spike, which is definitely not a good news for countries like India. India is the third biggest importer of oil, and a lot of our oil requirement is met by the Middle East that passes through this particular Strait of Hormuz. In fact, right now, as per reports, the war risk premium is up by about 1% of the value of the ship in the last 48 hours. So this is the reason why it is a cause of huge concern. Let's go back to our guests who continue to be with us at this point in time. Sierra Claire, now, it's a cause of concern. Of course, Donald Trump did mention that, he's going to ensure that the tankers get U.S. naval escort. There's going to be war risk coverage at a reasonable price. But we don't really see that happening. I mean, how is that really going to happen? Was it just a point that he made, or do you actually see it happening on the ground? Because, yesterday there were also some unconfirmed reports suggesting that Iran has allowed tankers for China to, pass through Strait of Hormuz. There are going to be no problems with ships that are moving towards China.
Right. Well, Iran and China have a relationship with the oil. China's been getting discounted oil from Iran for years, and I'm sure that they've issued messages to the leadership, and Iran doesn't really have a choice in that matter, most likely. But in terms of what President Trump said, it's absolutely going to happen. The insurance announcement that he made are already going into effect. So I'm sure it'll take a couple days to, he just made the announcement. So it'll take a couple days for people to get the information, the shipping companies and all of that. But it's absolutely going to happen. And as you mentioned, the naval escorts as well. Again, that's a logistical thing that needs to be worked out. As you talked about, it can't be for every ship, probably, but I think that their goal is to, get the key ships through and make sure that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is not such a ripple effect as it would have been, in past times, because we actually have taken out so much of their navy already that what people thought was going to happen with the closure is much less than it would have been previously.
Okay. Colonel Mahesh Ramachandran, as per reports again, Trump administration has tapped the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, or DFC, for this after President Trump made that announcement. Now, according to the reports, this agency is likely to provide political risk insurance to all shipping lines. Can you explain to us what this really means? I mean, does it mean that even for ships that are supposed to come to India will be benefiting? I mean, will it be, for all the ships that are stranded right now? How will it work in your opinion?
So, Hina, frankly, this one baffles me actually. You can give insurance cover, you can increase the premium, decrease the premium. But the point is, how do you give assurance? How do you give the assurance of safety? Knowing fully well, that ship can well be blown up, as we've seen some tankers being actually blown up on the straits. So I'm not too sure that facilitating a higher, a better insurance deal will actually solve the problem. Because it's like I mean even if it is oversimplifying it, it's like who would actually it's like jumping off the cliff and saying that, look, I have a lot of insurance for it. No, I don't. I'm not too sure this insurance thing is going to work.
Okay, Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, your thoughts on what kicks in from today? No longer the ships that are stranded right now will have the war risk coverage.
Ma'am, that is how the insurance companies play. There's a high probability of a ship being sunk or destroyed or damaged. They would back out. Okay. And I agree with Colonel Mahesh Ramachandran that getting higher insurance does not mean that you lose an asset. Imagine a shipping company losing a ship on, say, 1st of January or 5th of March, and then getting the insurance by another 3 months, say by 5th of June or so, and then ordering a newer ship to a shipbuilding company by about July or August, and they give the delivery next March. It's not that their insurance has made up for their loss. Who is going to make up for that 1 year loss which they're going to lose their business, which they're going to lose their contracts, which they're going to lose their promises to the clients. So it's not that simple. And then escorting a merchant ship through the Strait of Hormuz, just about 30 odd miles wide, I have stood on the southern tip of Strait of Hormuz personally, and I've flown over Hormuz in a helicopter. The speedboats from Iran to Oman, they traverse every day carrying the smuggled items. And a torpedo speedboat in that area, at that range, within about 10 to 12 miles, is a very, very, very big probability to hit any merchant ship. And we only had one incident. So a navy escorting a merchant ship is also risking itself to this low level of attacks. And the merchant ship, if the Iranians want to hit it, they will always hit it. And they have done it in the Iran-Iraq war. They have mined the Hormuz and they blocked the Hormuz. There are various means to block the traffic in Hormuz. And unless the Iranians are on board, I don't see any way the Hormuz traffic can be normal, especially when there are risks of physical damage to the ships. No shipping company will risk it.
Absolutely. And also there are people who are involved. This will also lead to loss of lives if these ships carrying oil are targeted. And also an interesting point you made there. I mean, will Iranians really agree to something like this, especially after what Americans have done with their warship in the Indian Ocean yesterday? I mean, that's the point I'd like to take across to my other guests as well. But for now, we have to quickly get our